trugging along, still here on Coast Salish territory. From BC to Palestine occupation is a crime, like we have said in the past and will probably continue saying. We are going to be joined, or we are joined actually on the line with Jeremy Appel. Is an Edmonton-based independent journalist. He writes for the Orchard newsletter on Substack and is the author of the forthcoming book, Keynesianism, Jason Kennedy's Pursuit of Power. So recently there was an article that Jeremy had written titled, Wave of Suppression Targets Canadian Palestinian Workers. Palestinian Canadians have been under attack from their employers, academic institutions, law enforcement, and the country's op-ed pages. And we are joined with him now on the line from Edmonton. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for taking this time out and joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so this is one of the fallouts that we were talking about earlier with Wissam Cooley, who got in trouble for discussing the phrase, or for using the phrase, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And so it's not just there in sensationalized public sort of spaces, but it is deeply ingrained. It is institutionalized in this country, as your article was talking about. Can you perhaps just backtrack a little bit, Jeremy, and give us some context as to what led you to write this article, and then let's talk about what you found.
Mm-hmm. Well, this goes back really to right after October 7th. There was, it appeared to me, an immediate backlash against Palestinian people in Canada expressing any sort of support for their people who everyone knew were about to get slaughtered en masse in response to the Hamas attack of October 7th. I mean, this has been Israel's really only means of responding to Palestinian violence since its inception has been just to use more violence to terrorize Palestinians in response to Palestinian terrorism against Israel, but to do it on the scale of 10 times the amount of destruction and killing. So I think the early demonstrations in support of Palestine were, of course, framed by politicians and media as these pro-Hamas rallies that were celebrating the attack. And I mean, I think there were probably elements that were, given how long Palestinians have been brutalized by Israel, but I think most of these protests were really mournful, knowing what was about to come and what has been happening over the past 75 years. And so with that came this crackdown by employers on anyone expressing pro-Palestinian sentiment. But I think it was particularly troubling for that to be seen happening against Palestinian people who weren't allowed to express any support for their people who are undergoing what many genocide scholars have called genocide.
And so, Jeremy, that this led you to, I guess, talk with folks who are Palestinian and Canadian and are going through different forms of, I don't know whatever term you wanna say, but perhaps you can outline some of the findings in your article.
Yes, certainly. Just to be clear, though, I didn't actually speak with any of the people who were fired from their jobs because I did speak with a lawyer who's representing a lot of people who are near the end of the piece, and
fair enough.
She noted to me that the people who are going to be fired are probably going to be reluctant to talk because anything they say publicly
No doubt.
Will be, heavily scrutinized. But, I mean, the day after October 7th, Mostafa Ezo, who's near Canada pilot in Montreal, went to a pro-Palestine rally, and then 2 days ago he was doxxed by this Twitter account called Stop Anti-Semitism that seems to focus almost exclusively on expressions of solidarity with the Palestinians, and very little on the anti-Semitism we see from the far right. But they've posted some posts that were in his Instagram story, one of him wearing keffiyeh in his pilot uniform. Another was a flyer for an October 8th rally that he captioned with "Fuck you, Israel, burn in hell." Another with a sign at a rally saying, "Israel, Hitler's proud of you." And then another with a sign that says, "Keep the world clean," with an image of someone putting an Israeli flag in a trash can. And what this Twitter account said was no Jew would feel safe flying with this anti-Semite. I mean, I think that perhaps some of his remarks might have been a bit ill-advised at that time, but I don't see anything that is expressing hatred for Jews as Jews. I see a lot of anger and justified anger towards the state of Israel from a Palestinian person who obviously has a different experience of the state of Israel as a Jewish person like myself. This was then picked up by media. The Toronto Sun columnist Joe Wormington has been really writing a lot of columns just trying to publicly shame, Palestinian people and put the most unfavorable spin on anything they say. What I found especially, and so he got fired by Air Canada, but what I found especially troubling about that is that his union also threw him under the bus and accused him of fomenting, quote, violence and hatred, and saying that this violated the professional code of ethics. And I reached out to the Airline Pilots Association, which I've done stories on before about, like, their organizing efforts at, like, WestJet, for example, the airline based in Calgary. And I got a response from their media person that was literally the exact same statement they said to the Toronto Sun. And I was specifically asking, like, how, like, a union has a legal obligation to give its members fair representation. How can you do that when you denounce this person as a violent extremist in the media? And did you even talk to him before you did that? And their response was just, again, the identical statement they sent to the Sun denouncing him as a violent anti-Semite.
Wow.
And that was just the earliest example. I remember when that happened right away. I was like, okay, this is going to get bad. This is that's only continued since. I mean, there are two journalists, Palestinian journalists, one in the Greater Toronto area, the other in Halifax, who were fired for either posting about Palestine or attending a solidarity rally and speaking at it. And again, there are these pro-Israel, pressure groups that engaged in and openly did so in a concerted effort to get them fired from their jobs, saying that they lack objectivity, which seems to be an allegation that organized against racialized people.
Right.
I mean, City News in Toronto has a crime reporter who, her bio says, Phil Martino, her bio says that she's won awards for her coverage of York Regional Police. And then a couple of paragraphs down, it says she volunteers for York Regional Police.
I see. Interesting. In the research that you did for this article, you named a particular organization that is watching what is happening in the social media spaces. Have you run across other organizations that are tracking this issue and making it problematic?
Yeah, so the Stop Anti-Semitism account is one of them. There's another one called Documenting Anti-Semitism, which I got blocked by on X, simply for asking if anyone knows who's behind this account, because again, it seems that it's documentation of anti-Semitism only really targets people of color and people on the left. And it almost functions like the Lives of TikTok account in the States that just takes social media posts from LGBTQ people, puts the most negative spin on them possible, and then tries to get them fired from their jobs. So that's another one. And then Honest Reporting Canada is a pro-Israel media watchdog that has a more specific project of finding anything at all critical of Israel in the news media and organizing these like mass email campaigns to try and get news outlets to either issue corrections or agree to meet with them and sit down and be berated by them, or have employees fired who have expressed pro-Palestinian sentiments. And you don't see much, I mean, you don't see that the other way around, right? You don't see people getting fired from their jobs for expressing support for Israel after October 7th, say. I know there are a few people who said like really openly racist things in support of Israel that are being investigated by their employer, but it's not on the same scale as this. And again, much of these statements that are being scrutinized on social media were like, yeah, a bit flippant, but they weren't hateful, certainly not to Jewish people. I mean, in fact, in the case of Yara Jamal, the CTV News journalist in Halifax, she literally said at the rally, like, that her problem is with Zionism, not Jews, right? She said Jews can continue to exist. The Zionist ideology cannot. So she was making a clear distinction between Jews and Zionists. But for these organizations, it doesn't matter, because Zionism is Judaism and Judaism is Zionism, which is incredibly problematic on its own terms.
Jeremy, I want to leave you with two last questions. One is, it might be obvious, but maybe there are some other common threads or some other nuances that connect these narratives or stories together about what is happening that you might want to share with us. And also, what kind of then responses have there been by any mainstream or other institutional organizations to challenge the ones that have been flagging this kind of speech?
Well, I would say it's very interesting to see a lot of these right-wing pundits who are openly advocating for people to get fired if they're critical of Israel, which they disingenuously frame as being pro-Hamas. And their otherwise, unlimited their advocacy of unlimited free expression without any consequences when someone like, say, Jordan Peterson, who is part of, as a psychologist, although he hasn't practiced in years, he's part of a regulatory body, the Ontario College of Psychologists and Therapists, and because of his unhinged Twitter presence and his clear attacks against transgender people and overweight people, which are directly related to his ability to serve as a psychologist, you saw all of these people in the National Post, chief among them Howard Levitt, who served as his lawyer at one point, I don't think he is right now, saying that no Canadian should ever be discriminated against in the workplace because of his or her political beliefs or political activities, because the college said he had to take a social media training course if he wanted to hold on to his license. And, I mean, regulatory bodies have professional standards, but then when it comes to Palestinian people in the workplace or people who support the Palestinian cause, then Levitt says no one has the right to free speech in workplace political discourse, and if it is going to alienate any worker, it should not be permitted by the employer, which is clearly the polar opposite of what he was saying about Jordan Peterson. That doesn't matter if it's going to alienate any of his patients or his colleagues, that he has this inalienable right to express himself. But then when it comes to Palestine, suddenly free expression takes a backseat to other people's feelings. And you see this all over. I think it's what Palestine Legal, an organization in the States that advocates for people who've been reprimanded or disciplined for expressing support for Palestine. They call it the Palestine exception to free speech, because suddenly when all these people, when it comes to misgendering trans people or dead naming them, or just spewing this hate-filled vitriol against trans people that leads people committing suicide, then that speech needs to be upholded at all. But if you dare say anything that makes someone like myself, who was raised in a very pro-Israel environment, sort of question their assumptions about the conflict, then you're like a danger to Jewish people and you need to be silenced. And I think part of that is probably due to this recognition that there is a generational divide in how young and old people view Israel, including among Jewish people, in that universities are really sort of the battleground where these debates take place among young people. And so if you want people driven out of public life for either being Palestinian or being supportive of Palestinians, then you're naturally going to have to start when they're young, and that would be in universities. But this is also happening across the board. Like Nora Fasalpour, I'm so sorry if I butchered your name, Nora, and you're listening, told me that she put out a call for anyone who's been disciplined for expressing support for Palestine to reach out to her for legal services. And I mean, she got hundreds of calls. She had to, after a couple of days, she had to direct people to other lawyers. But she said these were people in all lines of work, like not even jobs that aren't like public facing, and there would be like no reason to censor them for expressing support for Palestine. people who work in like kitchens, right? Or salons or whatnot, right? I mean, that has nothing to do with that. It's one thing for journalists to be disciplined for this, which is also, profoundly troubling. But it's quite another when it's people whose jobs have nothing to do with talking about current events.
Yeah, it's unbelievable and astonishing, Jeremy. Wow.
And that's why I wrote this.
So please let listeners know where they can first read this piece, and in general, where you would point them to get more information about this issue in particular.
Mm-hmm. Well, my piece can be read on my newsletter at readtheorchard.org. The headline is Wave of Suppression Targets Palestinian-Canadian Workers After 10/7. The piece was also reprinted in Counterpunch, which is a great American-based news site of sort of left-wing commentary and analysis that has a lot of great writings on Palestine that it publishes. The Maple is another great outlet whose URL is readthemaple.com. That publishes a lot of critical perspectives on this issue. And Ricochet has also been doing some stuff at ricochet.media. And I mean, really, it's just mostly an independent left-wing media in Canada where you're going to read these perspectives. Because if you read the op-ed pages of all of Canada's newspapers, there's only one opinion expressed, and it's the one I've been critiquing, that not only is everything Israel is doing justified, but that anyone who says otherwise needs to be publicly shamed. The one exception to that is Shri Pardkar at the Toronto Star. I would recommend you check out her work because she is getting publicly flogged for having a perspective that isn't the same one we're hearing all the time in mainstream media.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for writing the article again. For listeners that want to look it up, it's the title is Wave of Suppression Targets Palestinian-Canadian Workers. And we'll leave it there, Jeremy. I also mispronounced your upcoming book. It is Kennyism, Jason Kenney's Pursuit of Power, rather. I keep messing that up, huh? But it's your forthcoming book. We look forward to catching up with you as we go later on, and also talking about this book once you get it done. Thank you so much for writing the piece and taking the time out to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and feel free to reach out anytime. I really enjoyed this discussion.
Likewise, take care. All right, and so we still are here on Coast Salish territories. We are CFRO, broadcasting out of 100.5 FM. We are going to be taking a very, very quick segmental break, and we will be coming right back and speaking more about this issue. Stay tuned.